Okay, hello and welcome to EmilyAdventures. Today I'm going to do a review of the ADHD books that are still in my room at the end of 2020. I know that these books are, there's so much good stuff being written out there, and the research keeps going and the really awesome work keeps going, so I do my best to try to keep my books as selected as possible, because otherwise I swear I would have a lot of books. I don't have very little by any means, but I've definitely reduced my books by I think I have a third of what I had before. So yeah, these are the books I have right now, and it may as well change a bit next year, so just start it off. So I got diagnosed with ADHD a year and a half ago, and I went into super hyper focus mode. I read everything I could possibly get my hands on. Online articles, library books. I got books I couldn't get at the library, and so I kind of accumulated a decent sized stack of books on ADHD. And so these are the ones that have stayed with me because I think they're really useful. So I'll just start at the top. This is the book I got most recently, How to Do It Now, and I'm probably gonna pronounce people's names wrong, by Leslie Josel. And this is a really great book. So you have a lot of tabs in here right now. It's a really great book for students. I would say definitely high school, college, grad school. I read this to help me kind of prep for what I'm going to do for study strategies in grad school. And, I think it's really nicely written for, I think, young souls. It's very attractive, and it's very kind towards the more youthful reader, very clear, and I think Leslie puts it in a very accessible way, kind of talking directly to the student, the reader. There are people's stories and their strategies for doing things, so you can get ideas not just from here are the ideas for this, but people's actual personal strategies. And yeah, I think it's a great place where a bunch of different ideas are put together, so it's a great place to look for strategies. Of course, not all of them are going to work for you. You're not going to want to try all of them, but it's a great short place to look for study ideas and see what might work for you. And be no, don't use all these strategies at once. Please don't do that. Find what works for you. Here are a bunch of ideas. Do not try them all, which I really appreciate, because I would actually try them all. Okay, next in the pile we have Russell Barkley's Executive Functions. The actual cover is somewhere else. It's a cool cover, but I'll probably screw it up, so I usually take those covers off. What, the rain jacket? I don't think it's called that. I don't remember what they're called. This is a book for nerds, researchers, clinicians who really want to get into the research. It's very dense, very, let's explain all the things in the big research terms and point you to all of the studies. So it's a really great way to, I really like Dr. Barkley's conceptualization of executive function as a social evolutionary development. It makes a lot of sense to me and puts executive function into the bigger picture, which I really appreciate, because everyone's going around talking about executive function these days, but it's what is it? Why do we even have it? So I appreciate that. And he also goes into how the psychometric testing these days, that really is not a great or accurate way to assess for ADHD when used alone, because they test a very like small, fine, in the moment working of executive function, whereas executive function applies on much broader scales as well and can have much more broad, comprehensive effect on people's lives that are not necessarily going to show up in those psychometric tests. So yeah, rating scales are good and interviews are good. Yeah, but I made it through this whole book. I'm really proud of myself because it is very dense, and I really enjoyed reading it. The nerd part of me is just like, yeah, like really dig into the executive function. Okay, here we have A Radical Guide for Women with ADHD. I think this came out at the beginning of 2020. It's by Sari Solden and Michelle Frank, and this is an amazing, amazing book. It doesn't deal so much with like what is ADHD and treatment so much in terms of, you know, the classic medication strategies, social things and all that, but this deals very much with the issues that women face in like American or Western society. Women are expected to be according to like traditional roles, they're expected to run the house and like get all the schedules into line and keep the house clean and cook and all this really executive function heavy tasks, basically manage a household. And for women with ADHD, that is really hard. I can barely do it in my own life. So doing it with a whole family too, there are just these societal expectations on women that are really not easily manageable at all with ADHD. And so women with ADHD have huge senses of shame. We're deficient because we can't meet these expectations and all of this junk. So I think this book, it's presented in a really readable, short paragraphs, examples, some like worksheety type deals. It's very clean, it's very to the point, and it's also very powerful, I think. It helps women better understand within the context of society of what we're going through, and guides women to begin to acknowledge that these expectations, and that it's hard for us with ADHD that this exists, and to begin to accept ourselves and embrace ourselves for who we are, and not see ourselves so much as like we are failures because we can't do these things that are expected of women as easily. So it's kind of like the holistic self-perception view. Anyways, I love this book, and it's also not lengthy, which is really appreciated. Okay, next in the pile, by Judith Kohlberg and Kathleen Nadeau, is ADD-Friendly Ways to Organize Your Life. This was published a little while ago. When was this published? Second edition published 2017. I love this book. I haven't looked at it in a while, but it's filled with a million bajillion ideas, and they're all very short, readable ideas for ways to organize your life. It's like, you know, organizing time, organizing your stuff in your environment at home, organizing your paperwork, finances, digital world. It's like adult stuff we need to organize. And so basically it's like, I think it's like this book, it's like this book, except this one's for like adulting stuff. It's just a huge compilation of ideas that are ADHD friendly for getting your life in order. And, you know, again, I think it's one of those books where it's like, here are a bunch of ideas, find what works, try what works, but please don't do it all. There's so much in here, which is why this is on my bookshelf, because, you know, if a strategy is not working for me, I'm like, you know, I could look at this, provided I see it and remember it exists, but great book. Okay, next, Sari Solden's Women with Attention Deficit Disorder, which also applies for, includes ADHD. You know, I think ADD is like the popular term because it's shorter, maybe, and a lot of women have primarily inattentive symptoms. I don't. I also have the hyper. Okay, this book I read maybe over a year ago. This is an older book, but it's still incredible. Copyright 1995, then 2005. So, but this, I think, women who have ADHD, who think you have ADHD, or just diagnosed, or have it and want to learn more, it's not short, but it's so thorough. So this covers like the more like your person, identity, holistic things. This is like all the nitty-gritty. It deals with like the symptoms and thinking you might have ADHD, getting diagnosed, treatment, and how to like get things together after things may have fallen apart because of your possibly undiagnosed or untreated ADHD, and social stuff, best practices for treatment, and really explaining why those treatment modalities, medication, psychotherapy, coaching are so important. It really digs into the emotional repercussions of ADHD, the relational repercussions of ADHD, the negative self-view that is that ADHD can cause. So it just really thorough everything on ADHD, like the nitty-gritty for like what it is, diagnosis, treatment, and like how to kind of like wrap your head around what is this thing called ADHD. I love this. So good. I would read this before this book just so you really know what ADHD is. Okay, moving on. This book is by Elaine Taylor Klaus, The Essential Guide to Raising Complex Kids. Now, I want to have kids someday, but, I think in terms of parenting, look, I'm fairly young. I don't really want to think about parenting. I'm learning how to parent myself. This book is not just for ADHD. It's for kids who, have ADHD and or anxiety, or maybe autism, anything really that, makes them complex. And so I think Elaine does an amazing job at, making it so that the stuff that she writes in this book can be applied to just kids who are different and have struggles. And, I really, really, really appreciate that because, it's hard being different. It's hard struggling. So this is written for parents to read and really people who maybe want to have kids, or educators who maybe want ideas for how to deal with kids who have differences in a very kind and supportive and accepting way. Elaine's a coach for parents. This is very readable. There are incredible suggestions in here. It really deals with like the interpersonal, how to engage and interact with kids who are different. And there are stories in here. I love a lot of quotes in here from other people and from Elaine. This is just a really, really good book. I really like this. And so this was the first book on parenting that I read, and first thing on parenting that I have engaged with. So good place to start too. So yeah, this just came out. So good stuff. Here's another book. This is by Susan Pinsky, Organizing Solutions for People with ADHD. So this is specifically like organizing stuff in a room, in a space. So this like goes through the entire house. There are great pictures. There are pictures in places to show as examples. You know, also very, very readable. You know, you have a thing, you have the explanation, it's short and sweet. You know, I love ADHD friendly layouts. It's organized by space in your house. So I think it goes through the kitchen, the dining room, adult bedrooms, kid bedrooms, laundry, etc. So it's going by like areas in your house and ideas for organizing that. And I, when I was going through my room, just trying to make it as ADHD friendly as possible for me, I used a lot of ideas in here. So this is also just like a resource for ideas. You know, take what you like, leave what you don't, but the ideas are here in one organized place. Good stuff. Like my clothes are now in like clear plastic bins on a shelf because I can just sort of fold my laundry and throw it in, which I got from here. Okay, so this is the Mindfulness Prescription for Adult ADHD. Mindfulness and meditation are huge in the mental health world right now, and it drives me crazy when people are like, oh, just meditate, like, it'll help everything. Not huge on sitting in one place for a very long time, you know, that, like, getting myself to sit down for even 5 minutes, I feel like that takes more effort than, like, I would like to expend. But the Mindfulness Prescription for Adult ADHD, I love because Dr. Zalowska, sorry if I butcher your name, does a really great job of explaining why mindfulness is extremely useful for people with ADHD. It's about how you're engaging with your attention and what you're doing with it. And kind of like being like, oh, hey, ADHD people, like, it's okay, like, mindfulness actually can be useful for you even if you have lots of trouble focusing, paying attention and stuff. Like, it's more helpful for you because of those struggles you have. So she does a really good job of explaining why mindfulness is useful and providing a lot of different activities for cultivating that mindfulness. And again, you don't have to do them, or I haven't done a lot of them. Guided mindfulness activities or like mindful movement, mindful dancing, stuff that does not involve taking a meditation cushion, setting a timer and sitting there, and for me, possibly falling asleep. This I'm so grateful for because it's just, you know, I read, well, no, I don't actually read. I look at other mindfulness or meditation books and they're like, oh yeah, so just sit here for like 2 hours. I'm like, no. This respects my sitting capacity. It really gives a great rationale for why mindfulness is useful for ADHD, and it helps me understand why mindfulness is helpful and why I should bother with it even though it's hard. Yeah, good stuff. I like this book. I mean, okay, I like all of these books, otherwise I wouldn't have them. Okay, and the last book in this pile is Taking Charge of Adult ADHD, also by Russell Barkley. So this, okay, so compared to, let me dig it out. This is for researchers and clinicians who really like research and nerds, okay? This is for adults with ADHD who want the meat of what is useful to them, want something readable from Dr. Barkley. And yeah, so this is like the adult ADHD consumer version. This one is very readable. He's very direct with like, this is the research, this is why you should do this is why you shouldn't do this. So this is very blunt sometimes, but if you still like science and having things explain why they work, this is a great book for that. I'm not even sure if I've read this whole thing. Yeah, so very direct, very scientifically backed, very good explanations for why the strategies given in here will work. Yeah, anyways, yeah, clearly I haven't actually read this in its entirety. Very direct tips, very comprehensive for understanding what ADHD is from a very scientific lens. The stuff in it definitely works. What it is not, it's not a list of like, try this, try this, try this. Like, this is stuff that definitely will work, but is kind of hard to implement. But it helps you understand. Yeah, I need to actually read it. Yeah, so that's my pile of ADHD books that are in my room right now. I hope you enjoyed that. Yeah, I just wanted to get that done because heaven knows I have a lot of EmilyAdventure vlogs and DisOrient videos and other stuff I want to make, so I just want to whack them out because it's important information. Okay, so thank you for joining me on this EmilyAdventures book review. I don't know what I'm going to call it. And I will see you next time. Bye!